that's right. Check, 1, 2. Beautiful, Gordon.
Test.
I can't hear myself. Oh, there we go. I can hear me.
Hello.
All right. So we got 1, 3, and 5. Okay.
And I can join you guys for this one. Probably not gonna be able to join you guys next week. That's probably the big reason for it because I'm in my finals.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Sucks.
Hey,
So
it's
my last 2 weeks of class,
up to you. If you want to sit in,
so I can sit in.
yeah.
That'll be fine.
I'll be your best friend if you're on my car and grab the bag of chips.
No, I don't need any chips.
I got this, or I got my grab bag. Do you want a random beer out of this?
I will. There is beer on tap. I don't know if this one's updated.
Yeah, but the more of that you drink, the less I have to carry home.
But then you have less to. You don't have as much to carry home with you next week.
All right. How do I change this?
So, for this one, just move it over to. I'm trying. Let me see. It's gonna be. Oh, just DO.
Oh, okay.
And then start recording when you're ready to start recording.
Okay. Gordon, you ready?
Yep. Do you have music or no music?
No music.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah. So that'll be. That's not on me. That's not on me.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 26. Joining me, as always, is Ben, my co-host, and
Hello.
who's actually pulling double duty this week as co-host and producer. And we also have Carlos in studio with us tonight, who you might know from as a panelist and co-host of Department of Offense from Blind Ninja Studios. And I'm thankful to say that we are finally back in the studio after a couple weeks off. We had Easter weekend, and then last week I was out of town. It was way too busy to sneak in an episode here and there.
So many excuses.
You're one to talk. And if you follow Ben's Duck Hill Workshop on Facebook and Instagram, you might notice he's been working like a damn fiend. He's got a brand new shiny logo and a polished website, and looking all fancy over there. And
It's almost professional.
yeah, almost, but not quite. Ben, how are things going at the shop these days?
Things are good. I'm working like crazy. I'm building a live edge desk for my mom out of ash and maple that I milled last year. So that's really satisfying. I didn't realize how satisfying it would be to work with timber that I've harvested and milled myself. So
What about the silver maple that you cut down?
that is
80-foot chainsaw.
yeah, well, that's what the vineyard panels that if you go to my YouTube channel, Duck Hill Workshop, you will find the what I just finished. The video that just went up this morning is veneering those silver maple panels, and that came from this giant silver maple we took out of a friend's yard over here in Wisconsin.
With an 80-foot chainsaw.
It's 5 feet.
It was
5 feet.
fucking
60,
big.
60 inches, Gordon.
Yeah. Most importantly, though, today we have my friend Mike O'Hara in studio, head brewer and Fur Falls, Wisconsin local brewery, Swinging Bridge Brewing Company. If any of you have listened to the early days of Blind Ninja Studio show Homebrew Bound, you might remember Mike from the early homebrew days. Mike, thanks for coming down tonight, and please introduce yourself to folks listening at home that don't know you.
Hi, I'm Mike with Swinging Bridge Brewing Company.
Carson.
Good to meet y'all.
Very succinct.
Yeah.
Mike, so like I said, you're on Homebrew Bound a few years back. What got you into homebrewing?
Honestly, man, I traveled a lot when I was younger, and that gave me the opportunity to try a bunch of craft beers from all over the country before the craft beer movement really happened. And so I guess I had a love for it, before I was 21. But there was an accident that occurred where I got laid off from work, and I started researching homebrew kits and was really interested in the whole fermentation process. And when I got my retroactive unemployment check, I decided to buy a homebrew kit so I could produce beer for half the price. Wife wasn't so happy about it, but beer started turning out pretty good. So
Yeah, I mean, how much research were you putting in before buying the equipment? Because I just did if you listen to Homebrew Bound, I just did a beer with Casey and kind of caught the bug a little bit. And looking at the cost of homebrew equipment now, and it's stupid expensive.
yeah, it's definitely increased in price as the hobby kind of took off. But
And it really eats up a lot of space in your house,
yeah,
or in other people's houses. If you're Gordon and you decide just keep all your shit here,
Have I ever said how much I appreciate you, Carlos?
it didn't take long before my wife kicked me out of the kitchen and I had to start building a bigger system in the garage. So yeah, I got that homebrew kit and it started really taking off. And I guess the research that I was doing were more so on like the do-it-yourself kits rather than like going out and buying all the equipment, the expensive brew systems and whatnot. So I figured out how to alter old beer kegs into brewing kettles and mash tuns and all that. So I ended up setting up about a half barrel system in my garage, and it took off. I basically had the same thing as a professional system, but scaled down. So
Yeah, versus, like I've been looking at mash tuns and brew kettles and shit like that, and I mean it's $500. However, it's the Cadillac model. There's everything you want. I mean, you're saying how much DIY customization did you have to put into it? Was it the whole thing, or did you get like, here's my base model, I'm just going to tweak it till it's where I want it to be?
yeah, basically. So I bought the first homebrew kit, and that came with everything that I needed to get started on the stove. And then I got sick of extract because my palate, I guess, had already been a little defined, so I could tell the difference between extract and all grain. So I started going all grain, and that's where I went all completely do it yourself. So I had a bunch of like metal fabricators that were helping me, and the job that I used to work at a factory was getting rid of a bunch of stuff, and it turned out some of the stuff they were getting rid of I could have used. Like we cut holes in this cart and mounted burners underneath it, so that was like to hold the kettle and the mash tun. So yeah, everything after the first kit was all do it yourself.
you put it on a cart. Like what kind of cart were we talking about here?
It's like a metal framed cart that has wheels on the bottom of it, and then we put diamond plated steel on the top. It was like an open-ended cart pretty much that you put a piece of wood on to make a table. Mm-hmm. We took the wood out, put that diamond plated steel in, cut holes in it, and then mounted the burners underneath the steel.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Like how hot did the diamond plated steel get? Like when you're cooking?
It warped. So after the first initial go around, we definitely had to take some steel screws and like go through it and like bolt it all down to keep it from warping up. But
it's really mobile, though. I mean,
it is. It is. I could push it in the corner of the garage, and you wouldn't even know it was there anymore. So that definitely helped.
The first beer that you did, you started with the extract kits. What was that beer that you did? Do you remember?
Oh, gosh, that was Midwest Supplies kit for a rye IPA.
How did it turn out?
I think it turned out pretty good. There was definitely more hops in it because I over-purchased the hops. I like beyond the kit. I was like, okay, I know I'm going to want more hops than this. So I think I mean, looking back on it, probably not the best beer, but it turned out it was drinkable.
Not a bad first beer.
Right.
Not an imperial stout that has blown up 2 or 3 times and made a mess in the basement.
Yeah. But you see, what you're missing is somebody else's basement, though. So I mean,
I don't.
That sounds like
in
the
your case-
right way to do things.
Yeah, if you can get away with it, somebody else's basement is the way to do, like, store your beer.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
When you switched over to all grain, I mean, what were you brewing then at that point?
Well, my first all grain brew that we did was the original version of Captain Tripp's chocolate toasted coconut stout that we do at Swinging Bridge. So that one actually did so well that we won a local competition, first place stout category, and then we entered it into the AHA national competition and took first place regionally, beating out people in North Carolina to get into the main competition. But score-wise, I don't think they did a third place. So there was first and second, but we scored like 42 out of 50.
Not bad.
Yeah, that's pretty good score
So
for
the deer
AHA.
nerds out there, I actually got to have one of the first batch, your commercial batch of Captain Trips when you did that up at Pitchfork.
Yeah. O'Hara's pot of gold.
But so your homebrewing, for how many years did you do homebrewing for before you started to think, I want to work at a brewery?
I started homebrewing, I think, in like 2009. And I always had, once I got going, one of the things about me is I have ADD. And when I find something that I like, you hyper focus on it. So I really enjoyed brewing and like went down that rabbit hole. So it was always something in the back of my mind that I know I'd love to do, but never could wrap my head around getting all the paperwork together and actually doing it. It just seemed like it was such a far-fetched idea, thinking of, hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's like, how the hell am I going to come up with that? But yeah, so it was always something in the back of my mind that I wanted to do.
And well, that's where I first met you, is when you started working up at Pitchfork, and you actually trained me in on my very first day.
Yep, I remember that.
Yeah, walked in and Sarah goes, "Yeah, do you want a job?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, great, come in Saturday." Okay.
Yeah.
I have no idea what I'm doing.
That's par for the course, Gordon.
Yep. Yeah. I'll learn on the fly.
Right.
Why did you start working at Pitchfork, and why not another local brewery? I mean, especially here in the Twin Cities now. I mean, there's a plethora of different places to choose from.
Well, one thing, I was a regular at Pitchfork. Really enjoyed Mike's beers a lot, and that's how I got in the tap room. It was because they needed help, just like you. Is that hey, do you want a little extra cash? And so I started working behind the bar for I think about 2 years, and I was in a pretty bad situation at a factory I was in, and being friends with Mike, we would talk about what was going on at the factory, and he finally just had enough of it, as much as I did, and offered me a job. Like, you need to get away from the factory, so I think at that point, that was the pivotal point in my life where I knew that was the industry I wanted to work in, because I was making $23 an hour, and I literally walked into HR and put my tool belt on her desk and said, "Today's the last day. I'm done. I'm not putting up with any more of this." And then went to work at Pitchfork for a whopping $13 an hour. Again, my wife was super happy with me. But that was, who else to better learn from than Mike? I mean, that's he's got so much knowledge up in his head. Sometimes he's a nerd, but
A little bit.
he really knows the stuff when it comes to brewing. So it's what better place for me to learn than on a system like that.
I mean, was it a weird transition for you going from a half barrel in your garage to all of a sudden at Pitchfork you're doing a 5-barrel system, and now you're at Swinging Bridge?
Yeah, definitely, because in the back of your mind, there's a lot of money involved. So if on a home brewing scale, it's like you make a small mistake, dump that down the toilet, we'll start over again, and it's like $40 down the drain. Here we're talking hundreds of dollars of ingredients, so you got to be on your game. So it was definitely a little nerve-wracking at first, but over time, with the base knowledge that I had coming from home brewing, Mike kept instilling that in my head. Just trust your knowledge. Trust your knowledge. Just don't second guess yourself. And that's where my, I guess, niche came into play. Like, where it wasn't so distraught doing it. It's just I felt more comfortable at that point. So yeah, it was a little bit of a transition. Scaling recipes was definitely a new game. You can't just use the same amount of hops. You'd have ridiculous IBUs through the roof. So it's like, learning how to do that, and I guess just basically calming myself down. That was the big thing is, don't worry about it. As long as you trust your process, you'll be good.
Find it easier because you started with the homebrew background versus and then transitioning into it? Do you think if you went to school for it, for example, with no homebrew experience and jumped right into commercial, do you think you kind of had that advantage to fall back on?
I guess I wouldn't say it as an advantage, but more so I had the passion coming into the game. You know, it's like there's some people that go through those schools and come out and think that it's like an exact science and you need to follow this. And really, there's a different approach to it, too, if you want to go the artisan way of things. As long as you understand what's going on and know how to pull it off, it's have fun. You know, at that point, it's like, I don't know, I'm not a scientist. So, you know, and I could never see myself like diving into like, you know, molecular biology or anything like that. So it's, I don't know.
Right. I failed high school chemistry, and all of a sudden I'm brewing beer and going, oh my God, there's a shitload of chemistry in this.
But when would you ever use that again in your life?
Well, now that I'm brewing beer,
And I mean, to
I
be
foresee it
fair,
happening.
it's not the chemistry that you had to do in chemistry class of like the different separate like periodic table elements.
No,
like, it's
no.
like combining them to molecules. It's
thankfully,
not
or
that.
I'd probably melt pennies to the ceiling again out of boredom. So, Mike, when exactly did the idea for Swinging Bridge first begin to form? Did you, your partner Dustin, did he approach you, or did you approach him?
Yeah, actually, it's kind of a funny story. Working at Pitchfork, my name was kind of getting out there with some of the home brews and winning the awards and stuff like that too. Dustin and his cousin actually formed the concept for Swinging Bridge, and a friend of mine went into Ace Hardware, where the former partner was working, and there was a conversation about, do you know any brewers? And my number got passed. So Dustin and them approached me, and we sat down, and things were kind of rocky at first, obviously, because, you know, they didn't know where they were coming from, and I didn't know where I was coming from. So it took a little while for a lot of details to get worked out, and then we finally settled on a nice agreement and a decent space to do it at, and it all just kind of happened.
I mean, was the name Swinging Bridge there first, or was it that we want to do a brewery and then Swinging Bridge name came down the line later?
Yeah, the name did come down the line later. The name was in place when I came into the game, but wasn't actually finalized, and we did settle on it, and we figured, you know, that'd be a nice thing for the community as well. Like, they could, you know, it's not just something that we made up, like, you know, Bad Habit or, you know, this has meaning in the town, you know, and there is an actual swinging bridge in town that you can go visit. So we thought that'd be neat.
Yeah. So what are you're 2 years in now?
Yeah, a little over 2 years. We had our second anniversary on St. Patrick's Day.
Nice. All right.
Yep.
Which I kind of remember most of your grand opening.
I don't. I was in a cast, probably on some painkillers, and I know I drank probably close to 2 bottles of Bushmills with some friends that day. So
I remember like I was gonna get turned away at the door, and like you passed me anyways. I'm pretty sure that probably put you guys over the fire limit.
oh yeah, we turned away the fire chief at we didn't even know it was him, and we were well over capacity at that point. And yeah, that was a fun day, definitely.
No,
I'm actually now a member of the Mug Club. I joined this, like you had the last sign up. I joined up for that.
Awesome, man. Awesome.
Nice.
Thank you.
I remember, like, so me and a bunch of friends, we treat St. Patrick's Day like Thanksgiving. We cook this big dinner, blah, blah, blah.
Absolutely.
It was the day before. We were going to do this dinner. I'm like, well, I have a shitload I got to get done today. I'm going to go down. I'm going to go see my buddy Mike. I'm going to support him. I'm going to buy 2 beers, and then I'm going to go home.
yeah, the famous 2-beer Gordon. We're only going for 2 beers.
2 turned into a lot.
Like 25.
Yeah.
I wasn't drinking. I just had beer.
You got to do the Gordon math, where like when he talks about beer, he's talking about his session beers that are bizarre.
Yeah,
so you
so-
got to break down like this 12% beer into how many like 4% beers is that? That's 3 each, so that's at least 6 beers you're looking at.
But I easily had at least a 6-pack of what you had on tap there. I'm like, this is really good. God damn it. Now I'm spending more money than I probably need to. But for you, how did it feel? I mean, when you first knew and you realized, like, this is my career now.
I'll be honest, it's still sinking in.
Mm-hmm.
It's I don't know. I've had kind of a funny upbringing, I guess, a different upbringing than a lot of folks. So for something like this, it's almost like, I don't know. I have a hard time coming to terms with it because it's like, did I really catch this break? Like, is this really happening? And then, I mean, I go through bad days at times, it's definitely a rough industry to be in. But at the end of the day, when I go home and it's like, holy shit. Like I put myself out there. I did everything I could to like get into this industry and do what I want to do. And here it is. It was handed to me on a silver platter. It's like, it's tough to, I don't know. I try to be humble about it. My wife definitely gets like the weird end of things, like where I go off about it, but I don't know. I still come to terms with it on a daily basis. It's awesome.
I mean, how
It's
does she
awesome.
feel now that, post you spending all this money on the homebrew equipment and then taking this risk of leaving your safe job, working for Pitchfork, and then, you're now part of a new brewery. Who knows where that's going to go?
Yeah, that was definitely,
Well, she hasn't killed you. I mean, you're obviously...
yeah, but there definitely were some rough times because that's in any business, you have to take some risks to try to make it work. And this is definitely one of those things where it's like both of us, me and Dustin, were like, we're putting our lives on the line here, like to make this happen. Mortgaging houses and doing everything we can to make it happen. And, I think all in all, it has strengthened our relationship because she got to watch me start home brewing and watch this dream build. And now here we are.
It's a real thing.
It's a real thing. Like she's at work now at Best Buy, and she's having conversations with her friends where it's like, oh yeah, yeah, that's right, we own Brewery. It's like it's not just small talk anymore. It's like you're part of a brewery. So it's definitely done nothing, I think, but improve our relationship even through the hard times with the sacrifices. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
So, what? Just jumping back, you've been at Swinging Bridge 2 years, or a little over. You're growing, you're building. What's been your biggest takeaway from the first 2 years, and how is that influencing like the next 2 years or the next 5 years?
We didn't get enough fermenters. We did, and space. Like we thought this was, we thought we had a great plan in place and the right amount of equipment, and when things took off, that our number one problem is we don't have enough space and we don't have enough beer.
I got a
So
sledgehammer. We can knock out that back wall, no issue.
Oh, I would love to. Believe me, I would love to. So, I mean, that's kind of, we're looking at things now going into the next couple of years as how can we produce more beer?
I hear that
the
shop goes to be
space.
empty soon.
Yeah. We have been having some contractors go out and bid out some new places for us and see what it would cost just to hypothetically move or even start a production facility somewhere else. And so those things are kind of in play right now. One of the things we are going to do, there's another facility in Menominee that we've made arrangements with. So we're going to be able to produce 14 barrel batches of, like, say, the Kolsch, the oatmeal stout, like some very shelf stable beers. So that way, we'll have a stock built up and we can pretty much catch up, and then that will also boost our distribution sales and we can start saving money to move out. I mean,
So, when you talk about moving out, are you thinking about, would you ever move the tap room off of Main Street?
as much as we love Main Street, really we need to.
It's a big space. It's a small space.
It's a small space, yeah.
It's beautiful, but
I think with employees, our capacity limit is 50. So if any of you that were there on the grand opening, we definitely went over that.
I don't try. It was totally 49 people there.
Yeah. So it makes it tough. Like, when I'm behind the bar and the place is packed and it's great, everybody's having a good time. But then, like, say a group of 6 comes in.
Yep.
there's no place for them to sit. They're going to turn around and walk away. And like that's what I think is really hurting us the most is our space and availability.
Admittedly, I haven't looked. I worked on or close to that same block behind your building. Is it strictly employee parking, or could you, in theory, work with the city and do a patio-esque space back there?
That's a touchy subject, Gordon.
Next question.
Well, no, that's a touchy subject. That those spaces belong to the building next door to us.
Sure.
So, and she's not so neighborly. So
That'll happen.
we'll just say that.
Maybe you got to build vertically.
See, we thought about that too, but yeah.
Historic
I've
buildings
had that
get
conversation. Yeah. I've gone down that route before in my old painting
I will
world and shit.
Then you gotta dig deep.
Yeah.
Go down.
Yeah.
We
the
thought
basement.
about that too, putting fermenters in the basement. But I mean, and when you
Oh,
think
how
about
would you get 'em down
practicality, see, getting them down there
Oh,
or
yeah.
even cleaning them.
Oh yeah.
Like just the practicality of how it would work it's
Yep.
no way. Basically our only thing now is to find contract brewing and a bigger space.
Right.
So
That's so hard because I will say, from being one of the smaller spaces in town, it's beautiful, especially before like that 5 o'clock.
yeah,
You come in. We threw my the last day that I was at the university before I quit my job. We threw my last day party at Swinging Bridge, so we came
Nice.
in, and it was perfect because there was literally like 3 people at the bar, so we brought 20 people in and took over 2 tables, and it was awesome. And that's what I love that because it's not as much as I love Emma's. I'm not 21 anymore. I don't like being in there after 10 o'clock.
yep.
You
And
know.
see, that's kind of like what we were
You like
after
being there
too.
at other times?
I love going to Emma's at like 4. If you stay in Emma's from 4 to 9:30, you see the most amazing swath of humanity.
It's a complete flip flop. I
There's
love watching.
3 distinct changes.
Like, I know, like if Swinging Bridge is really
But-
packed, I'll still wait around. even if I don't have
Absolutely.
a seat.
Oh no,
If
absolutely.
it's at Emma's, I will walk out.
Yes. Yep. I've stood right by the door. Like
Yeah.
you go get your beer and come back and stand right by the door. At
That
Swinging
was,
Bridge. I have definitely done that.
The last trivia night, like or a trivia night. I don't know. Time's weird. I was I was at like trivia night, like it was packed, of course, and like I was like standing by like the door, and like,
Yeah.
but it would not have done that for Emma's.
True.
Well, I appreciate that, guys.
We'll see.
But yeah, so that's in our heads. Like, how do we fix that?
Yeah.
How do we move past that? And that's the only thing we're looking. I mean,
Yeah.
as much as we love Main Street,
Right.
if we want more people in house, that's how we're gonna have to do it.
Maybe
then-
move the bar to the basement and just have more fermenters upstairs.
Everything. You got to walk past the whole brewing process.
Well, then we deal with those people
be
in
kinda cool,
wheelchairs.
like,
Yeah.
Uh,
There's
um,
capacity issues with that too.
What's the joint at Mall of America? SeaWorld, not SeaWorld.
See, Underwater World.
Underwater World, where you have this plexiglass dome that you walk through and all this brewing equipment around you.
You walk through a fermenter.
You get to see fermentation taking place.
Have some like Disney music going on in the background.
No, but so talking about the idea of moving, how do you avoid? I don't think that Rush River has a real problem with this, but there are things that for the longest time, I didn't even know Rush River existed,
Right.
or I knew they were a brewery. I didn't know they were a tap room, and it's not the first place that comes to my mind when I think about, hey, let's go out. So how do you move to a bigger facility? How do you move off of Main Street and still draw the crowd?
Well, that was one of the ideas that's in play is that we just open up a production facility. And I think by law we have to sell so much beer out of it, a year or something like that. So we would just try to follow those guidelines and still keep the Main Street tap room location and keep the smaller system as like a pilot system. So, yeah, we've got all these ideas up in play. It's just, making the money first to play those
Right. Yep.
those options.
So it keeps you in business longer when you have the money first, and then
Right.
Wait, I thought you're supposed to spend money first.
No, Gordon, that's why your paint business failed.
Got it. Okay. Now I know. Shit. To backtrack a little bit, I mean, when you're looking with Dustin to open up this, I mean, how much red tape did you have to navigate through to get things rolling and open up? I mean, and is there a handbook for this?
There are a couple of people that have written books for it. One notably is Sam from Dogfish Head. And that's kind of what Dustin sort of based off of. You just kind of take the parts you like and, what you want and add upon that. But as for red tape, owning a brewery, it has to be something that you want to do, because to even start the red tape, you need to have a down payment on your system and a lease signed for the space or have property. So you have to have, like, basically your equipment is being manufactured and you have a property in mind for you to even start the licensing process.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how drastically different is the licensing for a brewery versus a bar, or a brew pub versus a bar?
Well, it's drastically different. See, and that was one of the things I think we were talking about earlier in the off time was liquor licenses in town. Mm-hmm. We don't need a liquor license. Okay. We are a manufacturing facility that sells our product. So it's a completely different license, but there's so many of them popping up that you definitely need to have your ducks in a row when your application review comes into process, because if something's off, you get put to the back of the list.
Right.
And then it could take, however long.
Now, I know for breweries that are distributing locally or nationwide, labels and names of said beer all have to be approved, and from my understanding, it's one person at the federal level. I don't know if that's since expanded.
I wouldn't say it's one person at the federal level, but there's only one branch at the federal level.
One branch, sure. Now, you're not distributing really far as I understand.
We're not crossing the lines,
Right.
so now.
Do you need approval, like to name, for example, hipster glasses? We're talking off air. I mean, do you have to send that up to approval to get that name, or are you able to operate more locally?
Right now we're operating locally. So if there is a trademark infringement, we will cease that. If we haven't gotten a letter yet, but I mean, if we do, it's really simple. It's like, okay, this is a tap room only release. We'll stop it, after that. But being is that we're only distributing in the state of Wisconsin, really we should only follow the state guidelines until we start crossing the lines. Once we cross the lines, like Minnesota or, Michigan or anything like that, then we got to follow the federal guidelines. So,
right. And is that so we can talk about that? Are you going to follow like the New Glarus model and only distribute in Wisconsin, or do you want to cross and expand?
I think right now we're really enjoying Wisconsin.
It's not like we're short for demand.
Right. But that's a whole different game getting into the Twin Cities, because every brewery has to be the best, and there's so many gimmick breweries right now opening in the cities. It's trying to find shelf space for this little tiny brewery from River Falls, Wisconsin. It's like, yeah, right. So I'm enjoying the fact that I don't have to deal with that headache right now.
Right.
I mean, do you worry about that? I mean, right now we're not overly saturated in the River Falls, Hudson, I don't know, I guess St. Croix County, Pierce County region. I mean, you got you guys, Rush River, Pitchfork, Oliphant, and
Hop and Barrel.
The Hop and Barrel, and who's out in Roberts? Bobtown, and
Barley John.
Mm-hmm. I didn't know if they're still operating out of their Richmond location.
Yep.
Do you worry about what happens if the St. Paul, Minneapolis kind of scene, where you throw a rock and it's 6 breweries within that walking distance?
I don't think the towns governments are going to let it get like that. Mm-hmm. But what I am seeing is like the pre-prohibition days where every town had its own brewery.
Right.
And if there's 2, like say here in River Falls, we got Rush River. Nothing wrong with a little bit of healthy competition. Mm-hmm. And that's not even on our radar. That's a whole different type of ball game. That's a production style brewery. Mm-hmm. And we're, I guess you would say, like boutique. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like,
that's a good way to put it.
Right, because we're smaller batches. We can afford different ingredients and play around a little bit more. And, kind of cater to what the town wants, you know.
Right.
So instead of what my distributor is beating down my neck, like, oh, I need this type of beer, and it's like
Right.
you kind of lose focus and artistry at that point. You're doing what your distributor is demanding.
Mm-hmm.
And what I think is kind of cool with the craft beer industry is there's this camaraderie within the breweries.
Yeah.
I mean, do you communicate with Rush River, for example, and say, hey, we want to do this beer fest. What do you guys have going on this weekend? See, I mean, you're not stepping on each other's toes. Is there anything like that?
Yeah, I would say, you know, obviously because we all own our own businesses, there is a small amount of competition in the back of your
Obviously,
head.
yeah.
You know, you always want to do better than what you want to put your Christmas lights up better than the neighbor. You know what I'm saying? So it's like there always is that in the back of your mind.
A
But
friendly competition, if you will.
yeah, absolutely. But we all are in it for the same goal, is to make beer and make money off it. And I think just having that same mindset in the industry is what gets us all along together so well. You know, like there's times where Hop and Barrel, either one of us can call each other and be like, hey, I'm short on wheat. Can I come pick up a 50-pound bag? Yeah, absolutely, man. You know, so it's like we don't want to see the other guy fail by any means. You know, it's like what we were just talking about. This is my dream. How could I be an individual to sit back and watch somebody else's dream fail because they don't have a bag of wheat and I do? You know, it's like, oh, yeah, I got your back, man. So,
Well, especially when you go to looking at the idea that the pre-prohibition, every town has their own brewery.
right.
You know, we have two. Hudson has
Two.
two.
Yeah.
You know, like that idea of you're not necessarily losing business to Hop and Barrel and Swinging Bridge and Pitchfork. So it's not like that cutthroat competition.
Right.
So that's kind of nice that you can rib each other a little bit and be like, hey, my beer, or like we both have the same style beer on, but mine's selling better than yours.
Right.
So
Right. And that I like that. You know, it's fun. And I think piggybacking on that as well, by having more breweries in the area, will get the consumer out of their house and wanting to travel and check out the new breweries.
Right.
So whether they stop into your place and have one or two, and go to Hop and Barrel and have one or two, and then go to Brewing Project and have one or two, we all just benefited from just us being in the area.
And that's
you
something
know?
I look forward when I'm on vacation somewhere. Like I went to Colorado a few years back, and here's Great Divide. What other breweries are walking distance? Okay, I can check them out.
Yeah,
what
here's
are
like 7 of them.
Yeah. What's a short Uber distance
Right.
away
Yep.
from there that I can go check out?
well, that's the fun. But you know, the idea of a destination brewery. Like, I don't want to just go to another bar
Right.
and buy a PBR or a McGolden or something. Like, let's go and experience the local flavor.
That's the key word, is they provide you a better experience.
Right.
You know,
Yep.
There's nothing worse than being on like a longer road trip and like everybody wants to stop at a bar and it's just a bar where you gotta drink PBR or whatever instead of like craft beer.
Yeah.
right? I could be doing this at home.
Yeah,
You
like,
know,
it's way better to stop at a brewery.
Yep.
Yeah, if I'm out at a concert like last Sunday, you know, it's like, oh, here's your. I'm now burnt out on IPAs. I've had enough. What's the cheapest, shittiest thing I can find on tap because my palate needs a minute to rest.
It's like crackers between.
Yeah, but yeah, like if I go to Madison or if I go to Colorado, where the fuck else did I go? Anyway,
Nashville.
yeah, I mean, hey, or Kentucky for a buddy's wedding. I go, hey, what's local? What can I get? I'm from Wisconsin. What doesn't distribute out that way? I
Yeah.
want to have that.
What'd you get in Iowa?
Pivo Brewing.
Twisted is what you got in Iowa.
So that was a trap. That was just a trap.
Pivo Brewing in where'd you
Cresco.
get married? Cresco.
That was in Pivo's in Cresco.
God, they were a lot of fun. So if anybody listening goes down that way,
That's what the cultural lesson for the day is, that Pivo is Czech for beer.
yes. To back up a little bit, Mike. So you're on, and correct me if I'm wrong, a Minnetonka brewing system. Is that right?
yes.
Okay.
Are we gonna go down this road? Here we go.
A little bit, not
Okay.
too much. just curious. I mean, so what made you want to go with a Minnetonka being not the most widely accessible system here in the Twin Cities, Western Wisconsin area?
Now you're okay for the beer illiterate. You're gonna have to explain what a Minnetonka system is.
That
and why
too.
it's-
Sorry.
Okay, so Minnetonka is a company based out of Minnetonka, Minnesota that manufactures brewing equipment. I was unfortunately not involved in that situation when Minnetonka was chosen. Also, too, I was naive at the time. But there's basically like a platform online where you can put out what you're looking for, and brewing company manufacturers will put a bid out, and you can suggest which company fits your bid. And my business partner chose them at the time, and that's how we got hooked up through Minnetonka. Yeah, it's been an experience with them for sure. For sure.
Well, so what's different about a Minnetonka system than I don't know anything else?
Quality.
Okay.
The system, when it works, it's an amazing system. But I think these guys have a lot to learn in the game.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
So
So we're talking about a problem with low bid.
yeah, basically. So Minnetonka's all in all, they're like a broker. So they have contacts in China that manufacture the equipment and send it over.
Oh.
So there's that gap in customer appreciation, I guess, or the customer relation, because you don't get to see the product.
Right. You don't get to see the product, and you don't actually get to know your manufacturer.
Exactly. All you know is you have this contact in Minnetonka, and if something's wrong, they have to contact China. And it's like, talk about red tape, going back on that one.
sure.
That one's, it's been an experience dealing with these guys.
So if I am now a sales rep for Minnetonka, and I ask you, I want 5 bullet point, feedback that I'm going to send off to whoever's manufacturing. I mean, what would you say to them? Or cordially.
Get to know your manufacturer in China. Keep your quality standards up. Customer relations. That's off the top of my head. Yeah.
So if you were doing this again, if you were involved in the equipment purchase, what would you be looking at now?
Well, for instance, what I would be looking for is to be able to water test my system before it gets to my property. So there's companies out there that will broker from China, but have a location that the system gets delivered to, and they hard pipe it to water, and you can come out and make sure it's okay and give the thumbs up before it comes to your property. This Minnetonka, on the other hand, you make the order. The Chinese shipping container literally was dropped off on Main Street. It was like, poof, there you go. I think you were even walking by the day that thing got
I might have
delivered.
been, yeah.
Yeah. And so that was honestly, it was a nightmare. You know, you got to block traffic and do all that. And it's so, I don't know. There's definitely a few things that they could be doing different. But
Yeah.
I mean, are there other breweries in the area that use the same system that you're able to go and kind of work with or talk to them about it?
yes and no. So, like, I would say Big Wood, Urban Growler, Lupulin, they all have Minnetonka systems, but they run off steam.
Oh.
So this is a different ball game. What I have the first one, even in the state of Wisconsin, is an oil heated system. So it's an electric rather than steam.
So what's the big difference between oil and a steam system?
Well, basically, steam is run off a generator, and you have to add chemicals to the steam to keep it from rusting, and all sorts of stuff. It's a different ball game than what I have. My jackets on my kettles and mash tuns and stuff like that are filled with an oil that is designed for heat transfer. So I have big, imagine like 2-foot long water heater elements that are about 9,000 watts submerged in the oil to heat up the jackets. So like when the thing works, it's like a Swiss watch. I have precision temperature control. So,
And on those days, like I might have walked in last fall, it's not working like a Switch watch. I mean, what's it like?
well, that's it. Aside from my brewing knowledge, I've had to learn a lot about electricity, thermodynamics, and watts per square inch. Like that's a whole different ball game now. So
Start learning some weird physics and
right. So it's not like I can call up any of my friends in the industry and ask them what they did with this problem or this issue because nobody else has it. My buddy John from Zymergy Brewing Company has the second one. So at least me and him have a
He's
good
able to play
rapport.
off of you.
Right. Well, he saw my system and then designed his off mine. So we at least have that rapport to be able to bounce ideas and technique off.
commiserate.
Right.
I mean, has it gotten easier at least for you?
Yeah, we had some issues with the system in the beginning because, like I said, these guys, they're not engineers at it. They just kind of threw it together, and we're making it work. So over time, we've definitely tweaked the system to exactly what we wanted, and now we finally have. Sorry. we have a very consistent product coming out now,
Right.
and quality is up there. So it's I don't have to think about the quality of it anymore. But
Thinking about changing direction a little bit, when you think about quality, the batch size that you're making, like there are a lot of variables that can change in beer between batches. How are you able to maintain quality, maintain taste profiles?
Yeah, we got into
Between
that a little bit
batches.
on
Yeah,
last episode with John and Eric that are hop farmers, and you being especially on a commercial scale, you look at
Yeah, I mean you're
Much
not
like-
aging 13,000 gallons
Yeah.
like Budweiser or something, or how I have no idea what the scale of,
yeah,
of
or even,
Rush River
where
is.
you're
But
still a craft brewery, but I mean, you're still expected to create a consistent.
if I come in and get
product.
the Kolsch, I want it to taste like the Kolsch I had 3 months ago.
absolutely, I would say standards.
Okay.
Don't bend on your standards, and that's my main thing. Is I put myself high a lot, where I even beat myself up on beers a lot. Like if it doesn't meet my standards, I'm a hard critic on myself. So I've definitely dumped batches at Swinging Bridge because it wasn't up to what I wanted to even pour myself a glass of. So it's not about the money at that point, but it's just consistency. Don't bend on something. Like if the Kolsch is a standard recipe but you don't have, say, Northern Brewer hops for it, don't substitute. Make something else.
Right.
Don't do that. And so that way you stick to your standards. And that's how we've been kind of.
Is it fairly easy for you to adjust your brew schedule? I mean, let's say I have my calendar up here. Week 1, I'm going to brew this. Week 2, I'm going to brew that. Blah blah blah. Oh shit! I don't have hops for week 1. Let's change the calendar up real quick. Is that
I think
fairly easy for you?
For us, yeah, being the size system that we have, I'm able to do that a little bit more freely than other breweries, especially not having a distributor on my back telling me, what I need to brew. So that's a nice freedom to have. Is I do create my own schedule, and if we are short on an ingredient, I will look at either creating a new recipe or brew something else that we have in stock.
Nice.
Yeah.
To jump ahead a little bit, hipster glasses. We're kind of talking off air a little bit about that. I mean, every time you brew it, you kind of do it a little differently. Was that a project you said, hipster glasses, I want to play around with it going down? Or was that here's the base, and then 6 months later, well, we don't have everything here, but we can certainly play around with it? I mean, how did that kind of birth itself?
No, Project Hipster Glasses right from the start was just a beer that we wanted to have fun with, whether it be with different ingredients or technique. And every time we do it, it may be a small tweak, but at least we do something a little different to it to try to bring a different flavor profile out or appearance or something. So, I mean, the beer in its past has been a Northeast IPA where it's hazy. This time around, it's not. We double dry hopped it. We've done different hopping techniques in the kettle, different hopping techniques in the fermenter, whether it be during primary fermentation to get the biotransfer we're looking for, or whether it be a hop stand where you cool the wort down to 180 degrees and you hop it and leave it sit for 20 minutes, then cool it down again another 10 degrees, add more hops, then whirlpool. I mean, we've tried. It's just a beer that we get to, I guess, exercise our talents with.
And going into, this time we're going to dry hop it. We're not going to do Northeast. Is that something you have in mind going into it? Or is it more off the fly, I want to try this today kind of deal?
No, yeah, we definitely plan ahead. We plan ahead for sure.
Right.
So, since we're talking about the actual beer, the two questions pressing in my mind are, what's your favorite beer to make? And what is the most popular beer you make?
All right. Well, I'll start with the most popular just because that's easy. The most popular beer I make is the Blood Orange IPA.
Ooh, yes.
Which is horrible. Nobody should go drink that. I will drink it for you. It's okay.
And that was honestly a happy accident how that all happened. I attended a homebrewers conference that was headquartered here in the cities, and there was an extract puree company that was there. And they had a blood orange puree that was just phenomenal. And we ended up making a firkin out of it for like a Friday infusion. And 9 gallons disappeared in an hour and a half.
Which,
Holy
for the
crow.
record, for your Firkin Fridays, I'm still pissed off. I missed out on your, was it stout or brown ale on peanut butter and cacao nibs, I think?
Yep. That
I
a good
was
one.
like, I can't, you were open for 2.5, 3 hours. I came in 45 minutes after that,
Yep.
and it was gone. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me right
Yeah,
now?
that's the firkin. Some of them, when they were a hit, they disappear that fast, and that's why we decided to go to infusions. And we're just doing it in a keg now, which gives us a little bit more volume and temperature wise as well. The beer won't get warm.
From a brewer standpoint, is it easier doing infusions versus doing a cask style, or is there any advantage or disadvantage?
Disadvantages, yeah, doing it in a keg. I gotta watch what I put in the keg to make sure that it won't clog the lines, or do it properly within like a bag and put it in the hops, But
And I've seen that with, or listened to homebrew podcasts where they kind of use like a tea bag for the dry hopping their keg, and they put it. They have it basically checked off at a certain amount, so as the keg goes down, the dry hopping will eventually go below that line. I mean, can you do that on a commercial scale?
yeah, absolutely. With the kegs that we have, the spiles go all the way down to the bottom, so if you do it properly, it shouldn't clog anything. So, yeah, I'm enjoying kegging them more now than the firkins because, for one, I don't have the temperature control like a lot of breweries do to keep the firkin at a steady temperature. So, I really don't like wasting that much beer. If the firkin's not a hit, and it's not selling as much, then we're stuck with 6 gallons sitting in there. So.
So I have a question: is there a beer that you hate to brew, or that is like just the most difficult one to brew? Maybe maybe you don't necessarily hate it, but
yeah, I guess for a while there, Cleary's Dry Irish Stout. I really wanted it to be a sort of a special beer people would get excited about, and it's our most expensive grain bill. that we do. It really maxes the mash tun out, and we're right to the top of the mash tun. And I kept getting pushed to brew it constantly, and it, to me, I wanted it to be a little special, but so we kind of changed the game there a little bit and pulled out the oatmeal stout, which is a little bit more feasible grain bill, and then it also puts the hype back on
Right.
Cleary's Dry Irish Stout.
But that Cleary's Irish Stout is great.
It is
Yes,
amazing.
it is.
It is a fantastic beer.
Just
Do we-
roll that out every March, and I won't argue too much.
Yeah, see, and that I have ideas too where I want to imperialize it, add a little more alcohol to it, a little more body and barrel age.
I will never complain about an imperial.
I definitely had maybe a couple too many on this recent St. Patty's Day.
It sounds like you had just enough.
Oh no, I actually had
Too
enough
much
of
of
that.
everything is
Maybe
just enough, right?
too much was going for Guinness afterwards at a different bar.
So we've talked about the most popular is the blood orange.
Yep.
Your least favorite is brewing Cleary's all the time. Did I miss your personal favorite beer to make?
My personal favorite beer to make is Captain Tripp's chocolate toasted coconut stout because
Which, again, horrible beer.
it is.
Don't drink it. Or I will jump on that grenade for all the listeners out there.
I mean, for that one, we really do source out as truest ingredients as we could. This year, we were able to source unsweetened coconut flakes from the Philippines.
Oh.
Some of the best coconut I've ever had. And then we even incorporate the local cookie place in town, Mimi's Cookies,
Yes.
to toast it for us. And then when the beer's done fermenting, I'll backtrack a little bit. We even use Hershey's cocoa powder. So it's not even we go get Family Fresh version or something like that. We get the actual Hershey's cocoa powder and put that in the last 10 minutes of the boil. For me, I think that gives more chocolate flavor than cocoa nibs. I think you get a tinny metal type flavor from cocoa nibs. So we went with that instead. And then coming back to the coconut after it's toasted, we essentially dry hop it and let it sit for 5 to 7 days on the toasted coconut. So
Yes.
it's a fun one to make.
How does that? So again, as a relative beer noob, other than a consumer of, I understand adding, hops and grain, but how do you add things like coconut? You just, same way you just throw it in.
Yeah, same thing as when it's done fermenting. I'll start putting head pressure on the fermenter, so there's a blanket of CO2 over the top, and then we have these nylon bags that are basically like cheesecloth, but nylon and very porous. So I'll just put all the coconut in. I think it was 50 pounds of coconut this year. No, 20. Yeah, something like 50 pounds. It was a ridiculous amount. And then we put that all in the bag and then tie it off and put it in the beer and just let it sit.
All right. And then how does the conversation go as looking at just being a local business and saying, hey, we don't have the equipment to toast our own coconut. How do you go and approach another business about hey, we've got all this coconut, we need it toasted, will you do this for us, and then give us a bag of cookies?
Yeah, actually that's a fantastic question, because it's neat how we work that out. Is we correlate with the cookie shop, Mimi's Cookies, by the way, in
Which
River
is
Falls.
Amazing.
Yeah, the cookies are as big as your head. So we try to plan out a dual release. So she'll do a cookie that will pair well with the beer. So by doing that, saying, will you toast the coconut for me? And then, we'll promote your business as well and sell your cookies at the brewery with the beer. So it's a win-win situation for all of us.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And all you need to do is find a good cookie to make with spent grains, and there you go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then you can just do some trading.
I don't know if I can handle a cookie that tastes like beer.
I don't know if it's if it's an oatmeal cookie. All right.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably doable.
A little stout in there.
Yeah.
I wouldn't argue much.
I don't think so.
I have had bread made from Spain grains, and there's a brewery that does their pizza dough.
Pizza crust, yeah.
Yeah. Who the hell does that?
I'm not sure.
Is it the one in Red Wing?
Yes.
Is
yes.
it Red
Ring
Ring
Brewing.
Pizza?
Thank you.
Or brewing or pizza. It is one of those two. They do both.
Okay.
Well, so we've talked about your specialty beers and such. What are your I mean, do you have any staples? But what can people find on tap when they come into the brewery?
You can always find oatmeal stout will be on, the Kolsch, Blood Orange, and Four Winds. Those are our 4 mainstays. We do like to go a little seasonal with things, when stout season comes around, we'll pull out the stouts. One of our new ones we got in rotation now after St. Patrick's Day is the Irish Blonde Ale. That one's nice. It's like 90% of the ingredients are sourced from Ireland. The Berliners are always fun. We like to do the sours, either base malt or base versions that you can put the syrups in, or we heavily fruit them to do like a Florida style. The IPAs always going to be on. You'll find nice IPAs. Porters, we do a peanut butter porter every now and then.
Awesome.
Yeah, that one's good too. So yeah, you always find there'll always be a diverse range of styles, not just your IPA or your sour.
How often are you rotating new beers on tap?
I would say, well, we've got a big repertoire since we've opened. I think there's well over 60 different beers now that we've put out. So right now, new beers coming out are going to be far and few between, but like some of the older styles we're pulling out. So basically every week you'll see a new beer come on due to the size of our system. We have that luxury, so when you guys come in and drink them, within a week, we've got a new style on. So.
Right.
And
How-
yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, so you also have the benefit of featuring other breweries.
Well, we do, and actually every brewery in Wisconsin does.
Okay.
They do. And that was part of our business plan in the beginning because we had such a large tap wall. We eventually wanted to fill it. But in the beginning, we didn't aesthetically want it to look like an empty tap wall. So we
Right.
did invite our friends in the area, just the local community, to kind of come in and fill up the tap wall.
That was going to be my question. How do you choose who comes in?
Yeah, well, we did have I would say New Glarus obviously was the biggest one, but we've had Brewing Project, we've had Hop and Barrel, we've had Pitchfork, Oliphant. I mainly wanted to stick into the local area to kind of drive business for them too.
Okay. That's cool.
Is it a big legal issue having guest taps on, or is it fairly simple where you can, I guess, horse trade between another brewery?
No, it's actually very simple. State law says that you can have any Wisconsin brewery made beer on at your tap room.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So like Hop and Barrel or Pitchfork, if it's made in Wisconsin, they can have it on tap.
Huh.
Otherwise, that's where the red tape issue starts coming into play because like, earlier in the conversation we said, this isn't a liquor license, it's a manufacturing license.
Sure.
So anybody who holds that same license, we're allowed to have them on tap too.
Is there a avenue for you to go to? So I really like Barrel Theory, for example, and you want to have them on tap. Is there a way for a Wisconsin brewery to be able to do that cross state lines, or is it just such a nightmare? Nobody on either side of the border goes, let's just not even bother with it.
Honestly, I haven't gone down that rabbit hole. But as far as I know, a Wisconsin brewery can only have another Wisconsin brewery on.
Under that venue, if anyone, Swinging Bridge included, if anyone wants to bring Lakefront's Fuel Cafe and put it on tap, I will be very happy.
Duly noted. Okay.
That was when I lived in Platteville. Every now and again, for whatever reason, the distributor that brought Lakefront in, they brought something else in as well, but they would never bring Fuel Cafe. And every now and like a box would fall off the truck at the local liquor store, and I would be very, very happy.
It's a good beer.
When you make friends with the local owners, sometimes you get what you want.
Yeah.
For those hard to get beers, I mean, are you doing any bottle releases throughout the year?
Yeah, yearly we do Captain Trips.
which again is horrible. Nobody go buy it. It's fine. I will buy them for you. It's okay.
Last year we had 2 other bottle releases come out. One was a sour. It was a Berliner with cherry and lime.
That was the
Drive-in.
Yep.
Yep. And then the other one we did was a very special beer to us. It was Soul Rocket. A friend of mine, it's an IPA with all Citra hops. It basically came from, I had a friend in town who unfortunately committed suicide and left a family behind. And before he did, when I was in my home brewing stages, I would bring my beer over to his house, and this was the one beer that he absolutely loved of mine. Drank Budweiser like it was no other, but this one he loved of mine. So I always kept that recipe in the back pocket. And then once I opened the brewery, it felt right that I needed to do something to help. Or to just, I don't know. I guess I don't know where I wanted to do something for them because they were so supportive of me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we brew this beer, and the first time we did it, it was just sold in-house out of pints. And we charged $6 for it, and $1 of every pint would go to the family.
And speaking of helping out, it was last November. You were kind enough to donate a free growler fill of beer choice to a little charity fundraiser that I was putting together, which was huge and went over extremely well with everyone. So, well, on the subject again.
Yeah, no,
thank
and
you,
that's a lot of the mission statement of Swinging Bridge is to be community supportive because the community supports us. Mm-hmm. So it's just an awesome way for us to give back if we can get people together and have a good time and have it beer centered and still be able to help like an organization or a family or something. We couldn't ask for more,
On that vein, being community focused, can you talk about, I don't know if it's still, I haven't been in it in a while. Can you talk the chalkboard?
Yeah, the Pay It Forward board.
Yeah.
That was a really cool idea.
Did that start from within Brewery, or did somebody bring that up to you?
Yeah,
guys?
we actually we witnessed it at a restaurant that wasn't a brewery, and we kind of just piggybacked on it and made it work for us, and it's taken off. Mm-hmm. The police and the fire department, they fight with each other.
I was gonna say, I think the fire department one is always empty.
Yeah. Those guys come in and drink a lot, but it's always funny to watch it. Like, the police have to have more money than the fire department, or some of the random ones that'll come up. Like, we had an astronaut on there, so if you were an astronaut, you could have had a beer. That thing was
Did
on there.
anyone take that in?
No, and we even thought on Halloween we were going to see it. And we waited for it, and it never happened. But, it's just funny. So, like, it's really kind of free game. If you have something in your head and you're like, oh, yeah, single moms.
How does it work?
So, like, if I come in and I'm enjoying beers and having a good time, and I see the board and I want to put $5 on a topic that I want, or the police, I just let the bartender know, and they'll either write it up there or add the money to the proper column.
Oh, okay.
And then when someone from that organization or something that profile fits, like a single mom or TSA agent that's up there now or something like that, they're allowed to profit from those beers. That's like basically buying a beer for somebody who's not there.
Okay.
So I'm asking for a friend of mine. Is the astronaut still up there on the
Asking
board?
for a friend.
Who's like a friend who's like looking at Halloween costumes for Halloween. Is astronaut still on the board?
Astronaut is not on the board. We dissolved that one because we never saw it. We just saw a guy that was kind of a little more drunk, and we're like, well, you're about an astronaut right now, so you.
That's right. The only effort I'd put into astronaut is the SNL skit where like it was just a plastic bagel for somebody's head.
Ah,
For children.
okay. I remember that one now.
Going back. Jesus Christ.
Way to derail the conversation, Carlos.
It's not DOO, damn it. That's what you think. Right. Mike, you've been open for 2 years now. I mean, what are some of the biggest challenges that you've faced and overcome? And what are some of the biggest rewards that you've found? I mean, you're living the dream by a lot of people's standards that homebrew with the dreams and aspirations of one day becoming a brewer for a living.
I'd say some of the biggest hurdles we come over was, getting the work done. A lot of people in their heads, or when they're dreaming about this profession, don't know what goes on the back end to actually make it happen. So, learning from your mistakes and making the correct choices after the fact, that's definitely been a big hurdle, just because neither me or Dustin owned a brewery before this. So this is, we're only going off of what we think will work, So that's definitely, I think, been a big hurdle for us. But getting through it, the rewards, I mean, just sitting. My favorite thing to do is to come in the tap room without any Swinging Bridge stuff on, so no one knows who I am, and watching everybody enjoying themselves and having a good time, and drinking the beer, and just kind of like looking back, it's almost surreal. Like, I did it. Like this is my reward. Is like everybody in here, regardless of what they're celebrating, what they're out there doing and having a good time, is that they chose my facility to come and drink my beer and have that good time. So it's like that's my biggest reward for it.
Mm-hmm. And anyone listening out there, they're home brewing, or they've been brewing for a while, but they're on the fence of working at a brewery, or they want to move into opening or working full time. I mean, do you have any advice for them?
It's not what you think it is. It's not what you think it is. Getting into the industry, it can be pretty grunt type work. But if this is your passion and this is something you want to do it. Put yourself out there. Mm-hmm. Get into homebrew clubs. Get into homebrew competitions. Improve your beer. Do everything you can. If this is something that you want to, this is not an industry that you can half-ass, because it will show. It definitely will show. So my best advice to you is, if this is something that you want to do, give it your all. 110%.
I mean, what are some good ways for somebody out there? Like, for me, example, I have no experience brewing. I mean, I poured beer at a tap room for a while, but I mean, that doesn't.
Well, that's your first. That's your first thing you can do. Is I would say.
But if someone's out there that hasn't even done that, I mean, what's the best way for them to get their foot in the door at a brewery?
That would be the best thing right there. Is entry level brewing positions, whether it being pouring beer or washing kegs or whatever. Get into the facility and be a good person. Be a good worker there, so they know you. Because most breweries will hire from within. Mm-hmm. So if you do a good job, they'll want you in other aspects of the position. So, do whatever you can to get in, on the entry level. Or there's the other route too, where you can, get into college and learn brewing school, and then, basically email blast every brewery out there, like, here's my resume. And it might not be the brewery you want to work at or the beer that they're making, but you're in the industry. And that's the key thing. Once you're in the industry, your name starts to get out there. For some reason, They look at you as, like a famous person. And it's really, I just make beer,
No, and it's funny, like, talking about people in the industry, I talking to somebody that's kind of a nerd, and I'm drinking a Swinging Bridge beer. Oh, where'd you get that? Oh, it's Swinging Bridge down at River Falls, Wisconsin. Oh, I've never been there. Well, funny story. I'm friends with the head brewer, blah, blah, and I'm like, who the fuck is this schmuck?
I still think that about
or
you.
You get that with the Todds of War Pigs, and what Ken from Sierra Nevada, or the Sam's from the Dogfish Heads. I mean,
they like put them on a pedestal.
Yeah, within the industry, it's like the Hollywood celebrities.
Yeah, and in my opinion, I think that's kind of, what turned Todd off of Surly. They branded him. And it's about the
Like
beer.
there's an IPA
Right.
named after him.
Yeah.
Where can listeners find Swinging Bridge if they're interested in checking it out?
Well, we have a webpage, swingingbridgebrewing.com. We're also on Facebook and Instagram, and we're located right downtown River Falls, right on Main Street, next to Grateful Bread and Fox Den Books.
And this year, 2019, do you have any events coming up or beer fest that you're going to be part of that folks can check you out at?
Yeah, actually, there's one coming up that isn't really publicized yet that we are finalizing all the details on. We'll be at Apple River called the Freakin' Float Fest. June 22nd. Every brewery that's in the St. Croix Valley area should be there. So this is a first of its kind. We're basically no Minnesota breweries, just us in this regional area. $50 is going to get you into the festival, a float down the river, and a campsite. So we're going to do this the Wisconsin way. You can come to a beer fest and drink as much as you want, and we will provide a place to stay.
Awesome.
There you go.
Yep. So that's a fun one coming up. Osceola, that's another fun brew fest we're going to be a part of. We talked about some of the beers coming out. We've got a blueberry pomegranate Berliner Weiss coming out.
Sounds terrible.
Yeah.
I better drink it. Just put it in my car. That's fine.
And there is one that's on the designing table right now called Turtle in the Clouds, which will be a double dry hop double IPA with some new brewing techniques. Awesome.
Well, Ben, Carlos, do you guys have any other questions for Mike?
No, the only one I was going to ask was events, and we just covered that.
Yeah.
Although I see that on Facebook that you guys have like food trucks on Fridays, and I've been missing out on Fridays apparently.
Yeah, that's kind of a new thing this year we're trying out. Not too frequently, just because we don't want the city to get upset with us, with the other businesses in town and whatnot. But we do have some friends in the food truck industry that, being a community-supported brewery, we also want to support those guys that are starting their own businesses, like the Big Cheese and Smoky Treats. Both are fantastic food trucks here in this town that were based out of here. So, every once in a while you'll see us put up a food truck. I think May 19th is our next one. No, May 10th.
Yeah.
May 10th, the Pita
This
Pit.
Friday.
Yeah, this Friday, the Pita Pit will be there from Hudson.
So, folks, if you're in the Twin Cities, Western Wisconsin area, you're listening to this episode, it's Thursday, May 9th. So, tomorrow, go check it out, River Falls, Wisconsin.
I might have to bike down there.
Yeah, they got a great Philly cheesesteak sandwich. And then, the Smoky Treats, he's amazing. I think he'll be back on May 19th. And then we also have the Big Cheese lined up, too. So, and those are like gourmet grilled cheeses.
Oh, all right. I'm there.
Yeah.
Done.
Crazy good sandwiches.
Hey, look at that. My schedule just opened up.
Oh, so the Smoky Treats is the barbecue one on here?
Yes.
All right.
Yep. They were just there last week, and they sold out of food.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah. He does these amazing poppers that have chorizo, 3 different cheeses, and they're wrapped in bacon.
All right.
Yeah. It's not your mama's popper, that's for sure.
And Mike, your trivia Wednesdays, is that every Wednesday or is that a monthly?
Every Wednesday we alternate callers. We have Olivia and a new girl. I think her name is Jamie. I haven't met her yet. So, yep. So every Wednesday we have trivia, and then Thursdays we do Mug Club night. So if you're a Mug Club member and you have a punch card, on your 10th punch you get a free beer, and then you're entered into a drawing at the end of the month for a free appetizer.
Awesome.
Yep.
Well, thanks again, Mike, for taking time out of your evening, come down and spend with us here in the studio. And for anyone else listening at home, you can find this episode at blindninjastudios.com, iTunes, Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, and CastBox. You can also watch the live recordings every Sunday, or not every Sunday, but when I post about it. And join the conversations on twitch.tv/Rules of the Arena. If you want to keep up to date on new episodes and guests, make sure to give me a like and follow on Facebook and Instagram at Rules of the Arena Podcast. This show is supported by listeners like you. I couldn't do it without your support. Really, it helps me out every time you give me a 5-star review on iTunes or podcast reviewer of your choice. It bumps me up in the rankings, allowing other people to find it. And if you don't think it's worth 5 stars, please shoot
Tell
me
him
an
it
email.
sucks.
Don't listen to him. Please shoot me an email, or if you have any comments, questions, show ideas, please, I want to hear from you. Shoot me an email directly at roapodcastinfo@gmail.com. And if you'd like to support this show directly, please go to patreon.com/Rules of the Arena. It's just a little tip jar I set up. It's just $1 a show. That's all I ask, or $1 a month. Either way, it helps out immensely. And this episode has been made possible by Blind Ninja Studios, where you can find this show and others such as Department of Defense, Homebrew Bound, Soundwave, and Legends of Lothos. And you should also go check out sponsor of the show, Duck Hill Workshop, a small-scale sawmill and builders of fine furniture. You can find them on Facebook and Instagram, Duck Hill Workshop. And don't forget to subscribe to their YouTube channel, where you can watch episodes of Workshop Wednesday and In the Shop with Ben and Glenn. Thank you again, everyone, for listening. I'll catch you next time.
Outro music.